Good evening, RPG Limit Break. Welcome to another match of Free Enterprise. I'm Tirasi, your restreamer. Taking over for comms will be Smaepdii and Simbu. I hope y'all enjoy the race.
Thank you very much, Tirasu. I am Smaepdii. People are always looking for it, and tonight you have found it. The Mist Dragon division tonight here on RPG Limit Break. Joining me on communications tonight is going to be the wonderful Simbu. Simbu, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. I see we got a DKC start tonight, so that's going to be pretty interesting.
Yeah, you got to wonder, is this even randomized, Simbu?
Yeah, we might have to call out everything vanilla tonight.
Well, my vanilla knowledge could definitely use some work, so hopefully that's not the case. This is a very exciting match, though. Four of our runners are going to be entering the arena tonight. Only one will step away, followed by another one, and then one more. But no more than that. Whoever gets fourth place tonight is indeed ending their tournament here.
Yeah, the stakes are definitely pretty high. I mean, typically anyone can lose this race and anyone can win this race. It just really depends on how randos and how people choose their strategies. I know that there's a very different strategy when it comes to trying to not finish last versus trying to finish first.
Right. So, as somebody who is also in this tournament here, Simba, what would your approach be here? Would you be taking sort of more conservative, more well-worn strategies here, or would you try to sneak in a gamble, hope it pays off, and get a big lead over everybody else?
It really depends on where how the seed is going, because early I'm just going to play safe. I'm going to make very consistent plays. I'm going to just try to get into a good position and not try to end up wiping to something like a Mom Bomb at Leviathan 30 times or anything. So just play it safe at the beginning and then eventually try to make a decision call based on how the seed has been playing. But it looks like our runners are off, and we have a Rydia DKC start.
Oof.
And the pass.
So no immediate progression on that first key item, but that is definitely a load off their mind, as one of the elements they need to finish this seed is in their hands. They do have access to that Zeromus fight. Not a lot of damage starting off, though.
Yeah, but we've got some options with Rydia. One of the nice things about the randomizer is we've added the minus Hobbs flag, so we're probably going to see people head over to the front side of Hobbs, and instead of getting Fire 1, Rydia will get a random summon, excluding Leviathan and Bahamut, so we might get something pretty good from there.
Yeah, one of the things, especially in these specific flag sets here where you have a limited access to characters, you're not necessarily going to see every character here, is characters like Rydia, you really start to realize the kind of versatility. She's one of the few characters in the game you can really either go down a physical or magical route based on sort of the equipment you find. I've been really surprised with how useful she can be as a frontline fighter if you manage to find a good whip for her and a heroine robe.
Yeah, the heroine robe is really broken for T3. It's one of the easiest pieces of gear to just obtain, but one thing it's not going to immediately help you with is that Valvalis sitting there in Baron Inn. That's a deceptively hard boss fight because Valvalis there has 4 defense multipliers of 90% evade, so even though it only has 400 health, it's extremely difficult to hit that Valvalis.
Yeah, right you are. We see Khobahi making the play to Mist Village here, looking for some extra chest checks. I'm guessing he's looking for a little bit of extra damage here before he commits to any of the boss fights.
Yeah, especially if you think you're going to be checking these anyway, it's better to get the checks out of the way early so that you're going to be able to use more items to speed through the early game. J item or a dancing dagger that I just see for peasants. Great items that are going to really help out for the early game.
Oh yeah, that is fantastic. I believe that was over in the Damsian cellar there. That dancing dagger is going to let Rydia actually start contributing the damage way earlier than she would ordinarily be able to. If you use the dancing dagger while it's equipped as an item, it does a magic attack on a single target that does, in the roughly 200 to 400 damage range, which is really helpful on these early Blue Planet bosses.
Yeah, we also see people checking Kaipo. It looks like a Yang in the bed, so we've got some potential things. Not the best characters hiding out so far. Porom and Yang are not the top of the priority list, but they can be decent given the right circumstances.
And it looks like that was a plague inside of the waterfall there, checked by peasants there. So that is a boss that we're not going to see in the normal rotation. Maybe one of the easier lunar bosses to find, especially if you have the right items to deal with it. So maybe not the best thing to see there, but definitely something I don't have to worry about going forward.
Yeah, and it looks like Peasants is going to head up Hobbs to give us our character check. He has the dancing dagger, so this spot only has... We've got, it looks like a Palom and an Ashura, so that's technically a possible fight because you can lifelock Ashura. It's not the fastest, but probably just going to come back later. It looked like that was Palom.
I thought it was a green cape, so I believe that was Porom, but either way, not interested in whichever twin that it was. So yeah, instead going into the Antlion cave here, a lot of treasure chests to check here, definitely things to pick up. And was that Sylph summon for Rydia?
That's what I thought I saw too. So Peasants is going to... the great thing about Sylph is it's a fairly strong spell and it's bugged in the game currently, or bugged in vanilla, so that you're not able to... you don't lose MP when you cast Sylph, so that could be really helpful for Peasants as soon as he gets 25 MP to cast it. And yes, it turns out it is a Sylph, and with the Charm Rod in his inventory, that could be pretty decent.
Yeah, the only thing he's going to need is to get through at least one boss fight here to get Rydia online with enough MP to cast it. You can't actually cast Sylph until you have the MP that you normally would have to cast it. Though once you're there, it doesn't actually take it. Really fantastic because it not only is going to keep your entire party healed, but do decent damage alongside. So that is, yeah, definitely a really good find early on here. And another lunar boss. And it's everyone's favorite Nope Rope.
So this is not the best because now the Dancing Dagger isn't going to be able to 3-shot it because Blaze will kill you first, but he might end up using that Thor or Zeus Rage, which would almost do enough damage. Maybe, I think Dancing Dagger plus Thor Rage kills.
Yeah, let's see.
And you would only get a weak counter, so it's not the worst in the world right now.
Yeah, Peasant's going to give it a try here. Let's see if the damage is enough. It is just shy.
Yeah, but weak is not an instant reset here, so Dancing Dagger, yeah. So, had to sacrifice the Zeus Rage early, but I mean, at least now you don't have to fight Ogopogo anywhere else.
Yeah, right you are, and there's a hook. So that's an early hook. We might have a hook seat on our hands, but there still is plenty of other places to check here on the overworld before we see anybody commit to that, I'm sure.
You know, I would have really liked to have seen Ogopogo at the hook. I mean, I am not by any means obligated to be nice to these runners. Yeah, you gotta take them out, like...
the hook does mean that is another character check that is on the table, and given the relative low power of the team currently, it wouldn't surprise me if someone dips into Evelyn Cave here and tries to see if they can find something that might jumpstart their offense here.
Yeah, I expect to see a few shop checks first because, again, everyone is going to do these shop checks at some point, but if you find exits, that's going to make your trip out of Evelyn Castle a lot better, so probably just going to go and see what we can find before committing to something like that. And Elven Bows, and I don't know if you want the Power Staff as well, since you already have a Dancing Dagger, but it's options that might help with the Valvalis if we find a Heroine Robe.
And if they don't find exits before they go check that Evelyn Cave, we can always hope that it's Kala to get them out of there. Maybe not what our runners are hoping to find in there, but...
Yeah. I mean... So, we've got a lot of bosses. What would you like to see guarding the hook path?
Oh gosh, we have seen some particularly nasty ones over the last few weeks. There's always the joy of Cagnazo sitting there. But I would love to see, just throwing out a reference to our RPG Melon, my 2v2 team, I would love to see Baigen down there.
I would love to see Baigen in the King and Queen spot. That is a very interesting encounter to try to get through, but looks like Peasants is about to check our Fabul fight. I'm pretty sure Peasants has, since he skipped Looting Miss, he's been able to get to most of these checks a little bit faster than the other runners. I wonder if it's going to pay off him choosing to skip some of that early looting for that extra minute or a minute and a half advantage.
Yeah, it's definitely giving him a huge head start here, especially since a lot of the gear that has been important has been in places that you would normally check otherwise, like in Antlion, like in Damsian, so that mist really wasn't terribly beneficial to the other runners. And honestly, with as skilled as these runners are in this league, a minute and a half could really be the difference between one or two places here. So it's this early advantage, definitely a good thing for Peasants.
Yeah, and we can see that Sylph doing work, hitting for almost 800 damage every single pop. So as far as, I see a question in chat, you don't need max mana to cast Sylph, you just need more than the cost of Sylph. So 25 LP, as long as you have 25 LP, you can cast it and it will not, you will not lose your LP.
Yeah, and one of the understated advantages of the self spell is, you know, you're also getting that healing on your entire party, and just the action economy of being able to mix that damage with that healing really is a huge benefit. And there's a darkness crystal from the King of Fabul there that opens up things.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. So we're going to really start seeing how people want to play this seed, because with this current party, the moon is really, really risky, but it could give you a huge advantage if you find the right things up there. So it's going to be a really interesting question when people decide to go to the moon and how long they decide to stay there. It's very likely if anyone finds sirens, they'll go up there for at least one grind fight to try to get their initial levels, but they might not necessarily stay up there because it's a pretty big time commitment to go up to the moon too early.
Right, you are. But if they manage to have a relatively pain-free moon, and the magma key ends up being on the moon, that could be an interesting routing advantage they get over the other runners. But a lot of the cards would have to end up in the right places for that to end up being a huge play.
Yeah, it's definitely up to runner's choice, and it's going to be interesting to see how people change their initial strategies just based on the fact that you don't need to finish first in this race. You just need to finish not last.
Absolutely. Just a brief glance at Zilch's inventory. I did see that he had a stack of sirens there. So sirens are available on the overworld, and like you said, that might be a strong influencer in whether our runners decide to stay earthbound or head up to that moon and maybe try to get some grinding.
Yeah, I also see Starvels and Hourglasses. Starvels and Hourglasses, both of them are good, but especially if we can find coffins, that opens up a lot of really nice moon grinds, specifically the Warlock encounter, depending on if all of our runners know which floor to get that. I also saw Khobahi picking up Medusa arrows, which could technically get the job done, but that would be a little bit more risky.
So tell me a little bit about this Warlock grind, because I know a lot of people are familiar with the King Ryub grinds, but we have seen a few runners during this tournament opting for this Warlock strategy instead.
So if you go down to the 4th floor of the Lunar Subterrane and use a Siren, you will actually get a encounter with 3 Warlocks. And the nice thing about the Warlocks is they're going to cast Fire 2, but then they're going to cast Psych, and by that time you should be able to cast an Hourglass on them, as long as you have at least 4 party members so you don't get wiped by the initial Fire 2 cast. And what's really nice about it is that you can coffin them and life glitch them for approximately 86,000 EXP, which is this almost as much as killing 2 King Ryus and life glitching them, but coffins are a lot easier for a low party team to utilize rather than trying to fight through the very high defense Ryus.
Yeah, certainly. It's one of those, just one of those more options that are available that, sort of people are figuring out. It's kind of insane how free enterprise has really allowed people to discover new things, and just knowledge of vanilla game translating to advantages in the randomizer, and just this metas and things like that just constantly shifting as we play the game. It's really fun to see these things unfold.
And we see peasants checking the moon and finding a sit up there. So again, we're getting most of the characters from the reject percent seeds, but overall, not the worst party, but certainly not the most broken party yet.
Yeah, certainly. Sid is definitely a character I would never scoff at this early in the game. He comes at a relatively high level compared to most characters you can find. Has a nice bit of hit points, can equip some relatively powerful axes. His usefulness definitely wanes once you're done fighting things on the surface, but early on in the game, not a terrible character.
Yeah, he can definitely help out early. I don't think he's going to be strong enough just yet. Maybe with the Earth Hammer and the Strength Ring, he could take down the Val in Barren Castle, but I have my doubts. I think that would be really slow if anyone decided to commit to that. But he would definitely help a lot on Ordeals and would be able to bring our Cecil online if people wanted to commit to that.
And we have a Dragoon, and it looks like Octomom is going to be the boss guarding the Rubicon spot. Not the hardest boss in the world, but certainly going to be incredibly fast. Kane, however, is going to bring a lot of power to the team.
Yeah, I don't know if we've seen the best gear for Kane yet, but Kane is overall a pretty good party member. Octomom is not super scary. Once you manage to land a few hits on him, he's going to slow down, and then it's pretty trivial to get through it. I see Khobahi walking out. I know I saw exits with the sirens, so losing a little bit of time here trying to walk out of the cave since he didn't complete all of his shopping.
Right you are. And as our runners just sort of making these checks here, for those that might be a little new to free enterprise, can you sort of give a rundown of what exactly our runners are going to be looking for here, Simbu?
Yeah, so we essentially need 4 different items to even be able to think about completing the game. We're playing the Forge the Crystal variant, which means we're going to need the Legend Sword and the Adamant, and instead of forging an X-Cal, Coco will actually forge the crystal for us. And you have to have the crystal to even be able to make Zeromus vulnerable to be killed in the first place. So, in addition to that, we're going to need some path to the underground to actually visit Kokol. Everyone has the hook right now, so they technically have a pass or a way to go underground. It's just the pass is kind of slow, and everyone would prefer to get a magma key. In addition, we need a path to Zeromus, and currently we have both paths to Zeromus. We have the pass, which instead of taking us to all the dancing girls in Toria, will take us straight to the lunar monster dwelling at the very bottom of the moon. Someone decided on some renovations, or we can just use the lunar well with the darkness crystal and walk to Zeromus the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, and one of the advantages to this variant that we're running here is it really makes it so that our runners have to explore more of the game here. In the regular version of Free Enterprise, you are just essentially looking for the crystal. Here, they've got to find the 2 items instead that would normally make Excalibur in the vanilla game. It introduces more routing options, makes the runners have to think a bit more about when they commit to certain plays and things like that. So definitely makes things dynamic for these like high-level tournament matches here.
And we see Peasants actually managing to get through that battle with the Earth Hammer and Strength Ring combo, and then getting a free fight with Water Hag, and getting a Porom and getting a Punch Mage if he wants it.
Yeah, very, very good. All of our runners going on some very different routing here. We've got both Khobahi and Zilch have headed to the moon here. Meanwhile, Peasants, of course, just cleaning up some spots here on the overworld, while Dobbytwostep seems to be our first player heading towards Mount Ordeals. What is so interesting about Mount Ordeals, Simbu?
So the first thing that's interesting is it's a terrible place to go because there's 3 bosses up here, and Golbez loves sitting up here. And the reason why Golbez loves sitting up here is you have to take your Cecil up here, Golbez's brother, to become a paladin. So depending on our runner's luck, they might be able to get a free paladin, or otherwise they're going to face some rude bosses up here that are not very nice. So we'll have to see how this plays out. Generally with a Sid, they should be safe, but sometimes you can find value like D-Mist.
Oh, that is definitely valuable. D-Mist is a particularly special boss, not just because this particular tournament division is named after D-Mist, but because on this specific flag set, Rydia's mother is holding on to one of the key item locations in the game, and the way to get the item from her is to defeat D-Mist. It's taking the spot of the key item that would normally be held by Edward and Troya. They're playing with the no free lunch flag set, which means any key item or key item location that would normally be freely available is not available. So not only will they be able to get a key item location check from Mount Ordeals itself, but afterwards be able to head over to Mist and get that check as well. So definite value here.
Yeah, and of course everyone's going to like their paladin, especially if they find an Exhal or a Crystal Sword later. And to clarify what I meant in chat, yes, Golbez is always beyond Ordeals.
And the commentators' curses have begun. So Golbez is a particularly nasty fight. Definitely not one you want to run into if you can particularly avoid it. Even if the fight itself weren't difficult, which it seriously can be based on whatever stats of the spot that Golbez is inheriting, but it just takes so gosh darn long. Golbez is a lengthy cutscene opening up here in which the Shadow Dragon is going to remove your party down to 2 playable members with that Demolish ability. You have to sit through all of his dialogue, and only then do you begin to fight him, and he starts spamming some very powerful magic at you that can devastate you if his magic attack is high enough and you are not able to get a reflect spell up in time.
Yeah, and in this back attack spot, it actually has a pretty high magic attack, relatively, just because Golbez, Mylon doesn't have any spells naturally, but we see the Star Vels going up. That virus would have one-shot the Sid, but luckily we got the Star Vels up. These early spots aren't that fast, so
yeah, some very good menuing there by Dobbytwostep. Still needs to attack with his characters there because Golbez's death is part of a script. He cannot actually deal the final blow to himself. You need to actually deal it with your own damage. Gets him to do that Y dialogue, and then he is out of there and into Kluya's Shrine.
So Wyvern now?
that would make for a particularly nasty Ordeals. We'll see if Dobbytwostep is going to take a safety save or run in. Nope, absolutely no safety here tonight. Running right in. You do get a free HP refill and revive on your entire party before you fight this spot. And the spot only has about 1,000 HP, so it's not the scariest place, but some nasty things can show up and throw a wrench in the works.
And we found the Mazamoon, so probably not going to be an edge in the seed, but we'll have to see.
It always seems to work out that if you have some high-level katanas, the ninja is nowhere to be seen. But if you do see him, he's got some good hardware. Pale Dim, not a particularly difficult fight here.
My commentator's curse just barely missed the mark.
it was a lunar fight, just not the right lunar fight.
So one thing that I actually should point out, because this might not be commonly known, is actually kind of bad that we have Earth Hammers and Fire Swords equipped right now, because Peldum is actually resistant and absorbs all elements. So the Earth Hammer and the Fire Sword are doing half damage right now. We can see the Wooden Hammer that has pretty bad stats is out-damaging the Earth Hammer because of that half damage.
And I believe that the Earth Hammer actually does fire damage, if I recall correctly. As far as the game is concerned, there are only 3 elements: fire, ice, and lightning. I might be incorrect about that, but it's kind of surprising that there really isn't that much elemental diversity in this game.
There's technically also the air element, and holy and dark, as some of our chat are pointing out, but it's kind of... But the main ones usually are fire, ice, and lightning, and Peldum absorbs all of those. But looks like everyone got through the Golbez without too much trouble, and Dobby is going to be the first one to walk away with our Paladin.
Right you are, and it looks like the options now are pretty limited. It's going to be take that hook route underground to deal with that Octomom and get into the underworld, or head to the moon and start making progress there. And what decision would you go for right now,
Simbu? So we know the Octomom isn't that scary, but first we're going to check Zemus if anyone has the memory capacity to do so.
Oh, right you are. It looks like Dobbytwostep is doing that just now. Yeah.
So once everyone figures that out, it's a really tough call. Personally, I would like some levels on that fresh Cecil, so that he can wield that legend sword like a boss.
Yeah, that is a substantial part of Go mode right now. So now all they need is underground access and the adamant ore, and they are in business here.
Yeah, it looks like... I'm not sure if Dobby has actually checked the character down here at all, so... who was down there?
I believe it was Khobahi that went all the way down there. It was either Khobahi or Zilch.
I thought I saw two people go down there,
Yeah.
but I assume right now Dobby is checking to see if it's a free boss, and personally, I would probably try... I haven't seen anything that would make a great moon grind. If we had a rune axe or that assassin dagger might work to kill some warlocks. I just don't... Technically, you can go through here and grind on the Mad Ogres for 16,000, but 90,000 sounds a lot better than 16,000, especially when Cecil will be getting triple for the first fight.
Yeah, right you are there. Zilch going into Baron in right now to pick up his character and get through the Volvalis fight here.
So the good news is we're going to have a Porom who should pretty quickly learn Berserk and Blink. And honestly, that's all you need to do pretty much... Like, if you have Berserk and Blink, you can beat most of the bosses in pretty much any spot if you get a little bit lucky. Ooh, Dobby getting paid off for deciding to loot some of these chests. I saw a heroine robe, which we were already talking about how good that is on Rydia, so...
yeah, definitely. Not a bad find at all if he wants to turn Rydia into something of a frontline fighter. That is an option that's available. With that Sylph spell, though, I'd probably want to keep her as a mage, at least until I got into the undergrounds, but then I would definitely look towards maybe trying to get some physical damage out of her.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what fights we're doing. For Octomom, it's really tough because in the back row with a heroine robe, she's really tanky and might not die in one hit, but without it, she's probably going to die in one hit, so you can make arguments either way. I might actually... It depends. She could actually make a pretty decent anchor here. I think you're looking for 16 and then 24 agility for anchoring, and then 32 after that, but with 24 agility, slowing down that Octomom just a little bit, and then being able to slow it down even more by punching it a little bit, that would not be too bad.
So for some of our viewers that might not understand the intricacies of Final Fantasy IV's ATB system, can you maybe explain a little bit about what you mean by agility anchoring?
Sure. So in the vanilla game, the game tries to balance the different agility levels as people get faster through the seed by scaling everything to Cecil's agility. Well, since we decided to make the game have the ability to not have a Cecil in your party, some things were done to make it always choose the top priority slot in the party. So whoever is in the middle slot in the party, or party order if no one's in the middle, will be the person whose agility determines how fast everyone is in a battle. It essentially determines, it balances how many ATB ticks it takes for everyone else to take a turn compared to the agility anchor, as we call them.
Very interesting. So what you're basically saying is that if you sort of know what you're doing with characters' agilities, you can maybe squeeze out some extra turns against certain enemies?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of different things you can do with agility anchoring. One of my favorite things to do with it is to artificially set a ceiling on agility. So one of the big places it comes into place is the final fight Zeromus. Zeromus has 69 agility, which is more than your characters will ever get. But if you put someone really slow in the middle, then you can set that ceiling really low, so people in the 20s can be as fast as someone who is 69 agility.
Interesting. And just to point out our runners here, 3 of our runners have decided to make that play through the hook into Upper Babel here. You can see both PeasantsOMFG and Dobbytwostep working on that Mad Ogre Traps chest that you mentioned is worth a solid amount of experience points. Meanwhile, Zilch, however, is going for that Warlock grind we were talking about here on the moon.
Yeah, it looks like he's having a little bit of trouble getting the Assassin Dagger procs, and it's kind of a... we don't even exactly know how the math works behind status effects procs like that, but without any good mage killing equipment, this could take a little while to actually get through. We never found coffins, so once he gets through this, it's going to be really nice for his party, but right now it's being a struggle.
And meanwhile, the rest of our runners are using life potions on the ogres as they kill them. Now, why would they be doing that, Simbu?
So this is another feature of vanilla. Some people like to call it a glitch. It's technically everything is working as described. Is when you use a life potion on any entity in the game, it revives with 5 times its vitality stat in HP. The problem is all enemies have their vitality stat set to 0, so whenever you life potion an enemy, it revives with 0 HP and dies again. So you get credit for killing it twice. And I see chat. Chat thinks you should answer some questions now, Smitty.
Oh, you're the expert here. I mean, you feel free to quiz me. I'll do the best that I can. But yeah, that life glitch is a very, very useful way to just eke out some more experience points, especially in specific encounters you'll run into that where they're worth a good value.
Yeah. Anyway, we see everyone trying to do a little bit of saving and final party preps before going into the King and Queen fight. This can be very nice or nasty depending on what's here. This spot has an incredibly high physical attack, like one of the highest on the earth. And we see an antlion, so that's not something that I want to see. So why would you not want to see antlion here, Smitty?
Well, the antlion has a nasty habit of counterattacking any physical attack directed at him with a pretty nasty physical counter, and with the enhanced physical attack that this spot has, that can be pretty devastating to teams here. Now, thankfully, they do have that Rydia. Never mind, Dobby does not have that Rydia. She just took a claw to the face. Doing some damage with that self and getting everybody healed would be definitely nice, but this is a very, very fast antlion here. This is going to be very difficult for our runners to have to get through here.
Yeah, again, the King and Queen spot is super fast, and it hits like a truck because it only uses magic in vanilla, so... we can set its attack power to whatever we want and no one will die, right? Until we randomized it. And now, physical bosses like killing things.
It's kind of ridiculous and sad that 30 years ago, Square was not thinking about how we might want to potentially randomize this game in the future and didn't future-proof it like that. But got to deal with what we've got.
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea what Square was thinking. Like, why in the world would you not reduce the attack power so that you can put any silly bug in here and not be able to squash it?
But yeah, looks like Dobbytwostep is opting to do a little bit of grinding here outside of the save point. Hoping to get a few extra levels on his characters, some more defense multipliers to stand up to Antlion's attacks. Meanwhile, we've got Khobahi and Peasants bashing their heads against this fight here. Khobahi in a little bit of trouble, and a lot of bit of trouble. He's going to take a wipe there. Meanwhile, Peasants seems to have a decent rhythm going down here with the Sylph getting those heals out and might be able to pull something off here.
Yeah, the one saving grace about this spot is it only has 6,000 HP, but 6,000 HP can feel like a crazy high amount when you're getting hit for pretty much instant death every single time. But I'm sure our runners will be able to get through this eventually, and we see Zilch taking advantage of that Warlock grind I was talking about earlier. We'll see how this plays off for him. It looks like he's going for quite a few levels. So I'm wondering if he's here to stay on the moon.
Yeah, depending on how much of a slog this Antlion fight ends up being for other three runners, Zilch may have just kind of gambled his way into a massive lead here, especially if the Adamant ore ends up being on the moon. And he decides to stick around there to do all the fights. Things are looking pretty good for him.
So, Smaepdii, we get a request from chat for you to explain why Peasants has Sid in the middle.
Well, that is an interesting thing. So, Simbu was talking about how the game uses Cecil's agility to act as a sort of what we like to refer to as an anchor for the thing. Well, there are certain points in the vanilla game, actually I think there's only one point in the vanilla game, maybe one or two, for usually cutscene fights, where Cecil is not actually in your party, so the game needed to have a fallback for what does it do if Cecil's not there. Well, the game decided we're going to use the middle character, the character in the middle. That's the spot designated as the number one spot in your party order, and we're going to use them and pretend they're Cecil for calculating agility anchoring. So one of the modifiers that we have for free enterprise is to take that special case and be able to apply it whenever we want, so that we aren't necessarily locked to Cecil's agility even when he's in the party. So when that AA flag is on, which is stands for agility agnostic, you can emulate that ability, the ability to have the middle character determine the relative agility for the rest of the party. And that means you, what that basically does is incentivize you to actually use Cecil as a character, whereas before the implementation of that flag, people had a tendency to recruit Cecil and just kind of use him specifically for agility anchoring purposes, and really kind of limited his value as an actual benefit to your party. Was that a good was that a good one, Simbu? Did I do well there?
Yeah, I think so. So I just wanted to ask chat how they're enjoying our master's level class in agility anchoring.
It's definitely one of those things that when you start to learn free enterprise, can really be difficult to wrap your head around. Just sort of the eccentricities, we'll call them, of Final Fantasy IV's ATB system. You got to remember, this is the very first time Final Fantasy had the ATB system implemented, so it's got a few quirks that are really crucial to understand in order to get to high level play. But we see Khobahi and Peasants have both moved through Antlion. They're on that Octomom spot, and so what is interesting about this is every, I believe it's 2 to 3 attacks that Octomom takes, it's going to lose some of its tentacles, and in so doing also lose some of its agility, so it's going to get fewer turns going forward. The other benefit of that is every time it loses a tentacle, its ATB bar essentially resets. So if you constantly have a barrage of attacks going through, cutting tentacles off left and right, you can actually lock Octomom down pretty easily.
So I've got to actually come in here and correct you a little bit. But first I wanted to mention we see Zilch actually finding a rather free fight on the moon. It's a really slow fight, the Fabul Gauntlet, but with Hourglasses it's completely free. But one thing chat mentioned is we actually don't have the Legend Sword marked for Zilch yet, so he might have forgotten to check that Demus spot. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on going forward, is if he remembers to go check for Demus, because value has been found.
Yeah, it's one of those things that can easily slip your mind, since Demus is going to pop up in a boss spot and not necessarily a spot where you're used to getting a key item. So yeah, it can, keeping that in the forefront of your brain that I've defeated Demus, there's something I need to go pick up here, can really be a challenge when you're balancing so many things, in your head, playing through any one of these given seeds.
But back to the Octomom, every third hit, you actually cause Octomom to, it's not technically resetting its ATB or changing its agility. It's using a speed modifier that makes it, for the most part, it's approximately twice as slow every time it loses a tentacle. So if it takes 2 ATB ticks to take an action at first, you lose 1 tentacle, now it's 4. You lose another tentacle and now it's 8. It's not exactly double, but essentially once you lose all of the tentacles, Octomom is not going to be a problem anymore. You don't technically reset his ATB either. It's just as soon as he takes his turn, he has the updated speed value, and it gets rather ridiculous. At the end, he's like 32 times slower than at the start of the fight, so he's probably never going to take another turn.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Another interesting thing is if you hit him 255 times or something like that, it will cause an overflow in his script, and his sprite will go back to having all the tentacles, but he still stays slow.
Not exactly a strategy you'd want to employ when racing, but definitely something to try out if you got some time.
But yeah, we see Zilch getting through this gauntlet without too much problem. He's getting some swoon procs right now, so that's nice. But on the other hand, we have Khobahi managing to make it past the squid, so yeah, this is going to be an interesting race, because on one hand, Zilch is in a really good position. He's got the moon as his oyster. He's got all of these great treasures to check, and he's got a lot of levels compared to everyone else. The problem is he is the only one up on the moon. So if we find a quick adamant down here, he might be sent packing and not going to join us in the top 12.
Yeah, now the one benefit that he does have in such a situation is he has a massive amount of experience, not only from the grinding he was able to do up there on the moon, but because those moon boss spots do inherently have a lot of experience with them. So he might be able to catch up some time on any grinds the other players might have to do. But yeah, really hoping that there is something up here for Zilch, or he is going to be in trouble, because all of our other runners are now getting access to the underworld here, and there are a lot of checks to be made down there.
Yeah, generally the safest play you can make is to go underground even when you have moon access, and even have to go through the hook. Sometimes it's nice to go up and get some EXP, but the moon fights take a very, very long time if you don't have good EXP and equipment. So we're just going to have to see. I mean, he's going to get a lot of EXP from all of these fights. It's just whether he can get the right items to speed up his gameplay, or if all of these free checks in the underground are going to catch up and bite him.
Yeah, getting some value out of those Medusa arrows and the swoon procs and that assassin dagger to really help out with these full gauntlet fights, which do not have the boss bit, so they're just treated like normal enemies. Oh my goodness, there's the adamant. And now everything seems to be coming up to Zilch as long as he can remember to check that D-Mist.
He still has to go underground, so he is encouraged to check for the magma key. But if he had checked that D-Mist, he would know that he could go straight to the hook, and this would basically be over.
Yeah, this is an interesting situation because we know Go Mode is on the table here for Zilch, but we don't necessarily know that he knows if he was just putting off the D-Mist check or if he just forgot to check D-Mist. We don't know which situation he's in, so in his head, he's probably best to just keep on clearing the moon here, which is definitely going to put him in a good position experience-wise to move on, and especially if he finds the magma key up here. That way he doesn't have to go through Upper Babel, but if the magma key is in the underground, still might be a great position for him.
Yeah, it's definitely going to get very interesting. This seed can go any way right now. Like, everyone who just got to the underground can go moon and go through a very long, but that's even another thing. It's behind the gauntlet, so people are going to see the gauntlet and just reset out. Like, I don't want to fight that. So this is literally anyone's game right now, and especially, I'll say it from a runner's perspective. You just got the adamant, you're like, oh, I just need one more piece. You might not be able to remember that D-Mist because it's been a while, even if you were planning on checking it.
Yeah, absolutely. Step checking the temp job dwarf, a scientific photographer, it looks like today. So that is a validated run for Dobbytwostep.
Yeah, to explain that to the people watching, we had a suggestion from a community member. I believe it was Rex Raoul. In vanilla, the dwarf is a farmer, and we thought it would be funny if, instead of being a farmer in the underground, it would be cool if he had a random job, and it's become kind of a validation for someone to check the dwarf to see what his job is in any given seed. And looks like Zilch has found DKC, which he's going to be able to get through this with his paladin Cecil just by spamming a cure potion, but everyone else is going to take a nap.
Yeah, thankfully though has enough HP on that Cecil to get through. Dark Knight Cecil, you just have to endure 3 of his Dark Wave attacks in order to trigger his storyline finish to his fight. So largely it's just an HP check when you get to him. But yeah, able to do it, and we'll see what he gets on that pedestal. It's some cutlery.
Well, he does have the Earth Crystal if he wants to go and try and find Edge.
Yeah, the spoon is the strongest weapon in the game with a 255 attack value. Fortunately, with this particular set of flags, nobody can equip it, so the only thing it is good for is a one-time toss with Edge's dart skill. That will do a massive amount of burst damage, but otherwise not particularly useful. If you're playing Free Enterprise yourself, though, and you want to put the spoon to good use, definitely recommend putting that spoon flag on. That allows Edward, everyone's favorite spoony bard, to equip the spoon as a weapon. That's a really fun way to get some powerhouse use out of a character that is usually regulated to utility.
Yeah, the spoon turns Edward into a complete glass cannon. It's really fun to zerk him and watch him doing a cool 3,000 or 4,000 damage to Zeromus every swing. But unfortunately for our runners, that flag is not on, so we're not going to have a spoony bard solo Zeromus with a spoon today.
And we've got some amazing synchronicity here. Runners that have gone into the underground, all of them fighting the Eidolon royalty spots here in the Feymarch and running into the King of Eidolons himself, Bahamut. Not a terribly frightening fight when you have access to Star Veils. Those do put up the Reflect status, which lets you reflect his Mega Nuke ability. And it looks like he drops a Light Sword, which is going to be some really good equipment for Cecil.
Yeah, you can't blame or be angry at the Light Sword. That's technically Cecil's fourth best weapon, I think. I think it's slightly weaker than the Defender, and obviously far behind the Excal and the Crystal Sword, but still a pretty decent sword for him. And meanwhile, Zilch still clearing all of these free fights on the moon. Usually the moon is scary. Today it's filled with things that you can use an hourglass on.
Yeah, there's a element to the bosses that we refer to as the boss bit. That is what typically makes them immune to things such as status effects, instant death effects, but there are some encounters that are classified as bosses that show up that actually don't have that boss bit. This being one of them. This lets you use hourglasses, which lets you stop them for several turns in a row. You can use things like coffins or the fatal spell to kill them instantly. Use the stone spell to petrify them. Lots of things that are available to make these fights way more manageable than they otherwise would be. And I do need to apologize, chat calling me out on my lore. Bahamut is the father of the Eidolons, not the king. I do apologize for that.
And Zilch is not going to get a free pass to the underground today. It looks like the Magma Key is indeed behind the rat tail.
Now that makes things very interesting, because that means Zilch is going to have to go through Upper Babel, go through the same path that the other runners took to get underground, because he does need to go underground at some point in order to forge the Legend Sword and the Adamant into the crystal. Now, he certainly won't have as hard a time as the other runners did with that Octomom fight, because he's going to have a much more powered, much higher level party than they did, but it's definitely going to be some time, and it will be interesting to see where the other runners end up when he's ready to make that play.
Yeah, and again, even now, Zilch doesn't know that he could be in go mode right now, so it's really going to come down to what decisions he makes when he goes back to the Earth. If he forgets about that Demus, which I assume the Demus is going to start becoming an increasing worry on his mind. Usually as a runner, as I get approximately halfway through the seed, I start thinking, okay, do I need to check bosses anymore for my Demus? So we'll have to see if he remembers that he's already killed Demus. And we're finding our first not free fight on the moon. Finding a Baigan, that is not very nice. He might be taking a wipe here, even with his high level party.
Yeah, and the one advantage here is he does have that Rydia with some multi-target summons here that can really help out. Unfortunately, Baigan hits so hard that if that Rydia gets tapped, she's probably not going to be surviving it. So we'll see what tactics he pulls out to try to get through this fight here.
Looks like Sheila 1 had a crystal, just not the one we wanted, a crystal ring.
Crystal Ring still a very, very good piece of equipment. It is incredibly useful at boosting the agility of whoever you have on it and giving them some elemental defense as well. So certainly not a terrible find at all.
And chat pointing out that Zilch is using some good old Cecil strats, put cover on Rydia, so now Rydia will not get hit by Baigan as long as he manages to keep Cecil alive, but you can just cast Blink on Cecil and everything's going to be great.
Yeah, we've been seeing a lot of these sort of cover strats, Paladin says, over the last few weeks. that cover ability, not only can you target somebody with it to specifically cover them, but anybody who is in the critical HP status, as we can see Porum is in his party right now, is going to be automatically covered by Cecil as well. And this is an important thing to keep in mind with certain fights where you're having trouble and an enemy only uses physical attacks. Keeping your entire party specifically in that critical status can be a huge boon, because you know Cecil's going to be taking all that damage. And in Zilch's specific circumstance right here, Cecil's in the back row, which means he's going to have twice the defense multiplier he normally would. In addition to having the blink status, so he can just shrug off a few physical attacks before that goes. Makes things a lot simpler, and Vigan is taken care of.
Yeah, we also see a interesting development on Peasant's side. We have a Fu found in Dwarf Castle. So it's going to be kind of interesting. I'm not sure if any of these runners know about it. Actually, no, but Fu is going to be really, really strong. He's got a lot of really good spells and stuff, so that's going to be very powerful for his party.
Yeah, Fu is always a character you love to see, just because of the sheer versatility of the spells he brings to the table. The fact that every boss you fight is going to make him just a little bit stronger, and that HP pool and a few more spells added to his repertoire, and just a generally incredibly useful character all around. And Peasants is finding from King, it's the Pan.
So the pan is really nice. We're going to be able to get 2 additional key item checks from that, which are all completely free.
Yeah, we know where all of the actual key items we need to finish the seed are, so probably won't be any amazing developments for us, but it's certainly going to affect the routing of our runners here, who do not know that the adamant that they're looking for is indeed on the moon. Speaking of the moon, it looks like Zilch has finished the last encounter here in Khobahi. A lot of free fights on the moon here today. Getting a pink tail. The adamant armor that you would normally get from the pink tail is not available in this particular flag set. It's an incredibly strong piece of equipment. So for these high-level plays, we put in a flag to disable it. But if you do decide to go turn in that pink tail, you do get a randomized piece of high-level gear instead. And it looks like Zilch is going to be using some sirens here to grind on some King Ryus and get some last-minute experience before leaving the moon.
Yeah, Zilch is definitely going to have all the levels, just unfortunately doesn't know where his go mode is. And we had a couple of discussions about glitches in the chat. I think while we have a little bit of downtime, I might mention a couple of things. First, actually, I'll let you cover one. Smaepdii, why do you like to berserk people who have arrows?
Well, my understanding is that if you are berserked and you are using a bow and arrows, that last arrow will, if you are able to run out arrows in your stack, that last arrow will still remain in your hands, but I am to understand that might not always be the case.
Yeah, so a little bit of very specific knowledge about that is if the character who gets berserked is still in the character queue and they use their last arrow and then are processed through the character queue by all of your other characters acting, they will still lose the arrow, which has sometimes happened to people during Ryu grinds and stuff. They'll zerk their Sid or something, and then they'll use a life potion and kill the first Ryu, but then they'll lose their arrow because that Sid was so far down in the character queue that when you get all the way to using the life potion, it bumped them all the way to the top, and oh no, I just lost my last Artemis arrow. So that's a really interesting thing. Also, a brand new glitch that we've kind of just discovered is actually related to the Dwarf Castle character. We figured out that in Free Enterprise, they are actually still classified as adult Rydia. And for some reason, if that character is in the middle slot, so if they put the Fu in the middle slot and then cast Zilch, or cast, oh, 1 second.
Yeah, we've got a big development here. At 1 hour, 2 minutes, Zilch has entered Go mode here. Well, I say that, but he still needs to complete that hook route underground to actually forge the crystal. But now he knows exactly the path he needs to take to finish the seed.
But finishing up the little story I was telling is, if people actually put Fu in the middle and then cast Sylph with Rydia, it would actually set Fu's MP to Rydia's MP minus 25. So for some reason, if the person from Dwarf Castle is in the middle slot, it still writes the MP from casting Sylph into that person, so you can actually give Fu something like 300 MP, or you can just continually refill his MP by casting Sylph over and over. So that's a very interesting development we found out a few days ago because of a seed that Invin just suddenly had his Tela end up with 200 MP, and it's like, wait, I can cast Meteo now, but why can I cast Meteo?
That is a very specific but very interesting glitch.
Yeah, it doesn't have too many uses because there's so few people who need that MP, but if you do get a Tela who is in Dwarf Castle and you have a Rydia with Sylph, you can actually go into like a D machine grind and just continually refill his MP by casting Sylph. It's kind of funny, but expect that to be patched out pretty soon, as soon as the tournament's over. But just all the time we're discovering new bugs with the game.
So we've got some interesting potential developments right here. Zilch is making his dive through Upper Babel. It's just a matter of time before he gets through, gets his weapon forged, and heads off to Zeromus. PeasantsOMFG is making the play down through the lunar subterrane and seems like is heading right towards that fight. We know that the Fabul Gauntlet is there guarding the Adamant. If Peasants sticks around and fights this and gets the Adamant, he will also be in Go mode here. If he looks at the Fabul Gauntlet, decides he doesn't want to deal with that lengthy fight, and goes to do other fights, that's going to add a substantial amount of time onto his run here. So this is a very, very crucial play here. Let's watch Peasant's screen and see what he decides to do.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we actually see Dobby doing something really interesting. They are fighting the boss at the Octomom spot. Why would they be doing that?
Well, if you've got that Fusoya in your party, Fusoya gets an extra 3 spells and 100 HP with the special flag we have on the Fusoya challenge. It's a way to make it so Fusoya isn't so dominating early game when you get him. Every fight that you do is going to add those 3 spells and 100 HP to Fu until he gets to his maximum power, where he has every spell and maxed out HP. So doing those easy fights there is a very quick way to get Fusoya up to speed. And Peasants is actually doing the fight here. He did not leave, so it's just a matter of time before he gets his Adamant and is going to be in Go mode alongside Zilch. This is going to be very close.
So I wanted to clarify something in chat. This bug is specifically tied to whoever replaces Adult Rydia. So I've not been able to confirm it in vanilla yet, but I bet if you put Adult Rydia in the middle slot and cast Sylph in vanilla, she would actually lose the 25 MP, but for some reason it's bugged to only check for Adult Rydia in the middle, and she will not lose MP anywhere else. I'm not confirming that, but I think that would probably be the case. it just so happens that the game treats whoever comes from Dwarf Castle as adult Rydia. So we ended up with a Sid with 190 EMP a couple weeks ago, which was funny, but didn't really do anything.
Now that's an interesting play we saw here on Dobbytwostep screen that I haven't seen before. He actually went all the way to the last screen of Cave Bahamut here, peeked over across without going to see what the fight was, saw it was Yang, realizing it's a free fight, just decides to dig in, do his grind here, and then move in and get the fight. That is a very, very clever play.
And we also see Peasants actually sticking with that gauntlet, deciding that the 2 key items is worth it, so going to get rewarded here shortly.
Yeah, and that means it's going to be Zilch and Peasants are in a clear lead here. They're very, very close to getting where they need to be to finish this seed. So Dobbytwostep and Khobahi are going to be the ones that are kind of on the knife's edge here, because remember, this is an elimination race. Position here does not matter as long as it's not fourth. Whoever takes fourth place here is going to be out of the tournament. So pay attention to those two, as it's looking right now, as things stand, like it's going to be a race between the two of them. And Dobby, after doing a King Ryu fight, moved into the Yang fight here. Now, when you have Paladin Cecil in your party, there is a storyline trigger that you can get here. After he has gone through 2 cycles of his attack and his kick, a single attack from Paladin Cecil will get him to snap back to his senses and immediately end the fight. There's the ouch signaling that it's happened, and the fight is done. And Zilch is in the underground now. Immediately heading down to the Kokal Smith, getting his Crystal Forge, and we should see him heading up to Zeromus here very shortly.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what this causes Khobahi and Dobby to do, because that was a fairly early play to the moon, and I mean, Go Mode has... They've all found the Legend Sword quite a while ago, so I don't know if anyone's going to be able to metagame this successfully, especially with a gauntlet there. It's kind of up in the air.
Yeah, the gauntlet there is a huge wrench in the works, especially if you're trying to metagame out time based on when people have finished, because that is a spot that people might just decide to pass right over when they're looking for things, because that gauntlet just takes so much time to slog through. That could really obfuscate where that adamant is if you are seeing a dot done this early and trying to figure out what route the other racer took. And Zilch checking with the temporary job dwarf, so that is also a verified run. Khobahi climbing the tower here and finding a spot.
So, since Zilch is about to go into the Z fight, what do you think of his party composition right now?
I think it's a pretty decent combination. You've got, I believe he found the Bacchuses, which will automatically put Berserk on whomever you need. So he's got those going on. You know, he's got a substantial amount of healing to be able to deal with that. So I'm not... actually, I'm sorry, Zilch is looking for the Bacchuses right now. I don't think he's found them yet, but does have access to every shop in the game. So they'll be somewhere, yeah, there they are, right there in Dwarf Castle. So as long as he's able to, you know, just keep everybody healed and just let those Berserkers deal the damage that they need to do, it should be a relatively straightforward Zeromus fight.
Yeah, I would agree for the most part. Sid is a pretty good person to put in the middle because of his slow agility. He might be a little bit too high level to really do that well. But one problem that Zilch is going to have, as chat is pointing out, is we don't really have a lot of great weapons for Zilch. So while he can get through the fight, I don't think he has a really good white mage. Porom is a white mage. Porom's MP is... HP is a little bit low, so I think Zilch is still searching shops, still searching for weapons, and honestly, Peasants with a pretty quick egg grind might be able to beat him out to the end.
Yeah, Peasants definitely has a stronger team for taking on Zeromus. One thing that kind of got lost in all of the excitement there was Sheila had an Excalibur that Peasants was able to pick up for Cecil there, which is a phenomenal weapon for him, second best in the game for Paladin Cecil. So he is going to be able to do a substantial amount of damage to Zeromus in this final fight. So yeah, first and second don't really matter too much between the difference between them in this particular race. You're very right. Peasants might be able to overcome Zilch's advantage here just from having a stronger party.
But Zilch is going overworld, so he might be heading to Troria to take his free trip to... Nope. I think he's got some plans to turn in that rat tail and pink tail first.
Yeah, not a terrible idea. Like we said, that pink tail can give you a free piece of high-level equipment. So as poorly equipped as he is, especially compared to the other runners, grabbing this might be a huge boost in power for him.
Yeah, so one of the, first off, Zilch getting paid off for his searching, but I think he's probably of the mindset, oh, I went moon early and I found the item I needed. Probably no one else followed me up here. So I probably have a comfortable lead, and I don't want to blow my lead by wiping to Zeromus 2 or 3 times. I want to get myself well set up and just go through this. We've got an X-Cow, we have a Zeus Gauntlet. Ciso's going to be doing damage. Unfortunately, again, unless he has a... That Sid is a little bit high level for my liking.
Yeah, but very, very difficult to just how big of a find that Excalibur was there. Now, all of a sudden, he has got a very, very strong attacker in that Cecil, and his damage output on Zeromus just skyrocketed. So very, very big find there for Zilch.
Yeah, but I don't really like this Z fight because it's going to be a lot of damage. Ciso plus Kane Zerk is going to do some work, but his Porom only has 1300 HP, and that will survive a nerf Big Bang, but she's not going to have Cure 4. I'm hoping she has Cure 3, but I would not be surprised if this Z fight goes a little bit bad for Zilch and he takes a wipe here.
Yeah, we might see Sid fall back onto his secondary duty that we and that is throwing items around as a chemist. But before we speculate on that, Simbu, I think we've got a question that chat is itching to hear. I'll let you have the honors, my friend.
Yeah, I can see all the flags in chat. We have to ask it. Whose butt are we going to kick tonight?
So one of the fun things about free enterprise, alongside things like the temp job door, is that our developers here, largely our phenomenal Scala Kitty, have curated an enormous amount of alternate sprites for Zeromus here. They don't change the battle in any way. They're just a fun way to cap things off. So let's see who his alter ego is this evening. Oh, and all my freshman year of college rushing back to me. Oh, it's DDRMS.
So, pretty nicey sprite here. We're gonna have to see how kindly it treats our runners tonight, though. Supposedly this game can be pretty tough, right?
Oh goodness, yes, I can tell you. That's a lot of 8 notes right there. Gonna definitely want to do some crossovers and some very quick steps here if he wants to keep that combo going. And
he's
look
going
at
to
the
have
sync up here. PeasantsOMFG right on Zilch's heels going into this Zeromus fight. So this is going to be a really, really close battle to the end for the two of them.
Yeah, it's definitely, I'm not extremely happy with either of their setups. Peasants has a little bit better setup because his Fu actually can survive Big Bangs, whereas Porum is not going to help very much this fight. But it's going to be interesting. Meanwhile, we see Dobby taking the right plays, going through the gauntlet, and unfortunately with Khobahi committing to the earth and saying, okay, let me check Luca, let me check Baron, let me check Twin Harp, let me check everything, it's probably not going to be very good for him, and he might make a last-ditch desperation play when the .duns start coming in, but unfortunately it looks like he's going to take a loss at the very start of the round of 16, just like last year, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, this is just really unfortunate of a situation here. When you go make that Luca check, you always think, well, I'm just going to go check in here. If it's something I need, I can grab it. If it's something I don't need, I can just save scum out of it. But you know, when you find a key item like that Baron key that could possibly lead to something else, somewhere else in the world, you can't leave it behind. You got to fully commit there, and unfortunately, that is just not going to be helpful here for Khobahi.
But despite not knowing the outcome, Khobahi is going to be a man of the people. He is going to go and check our Twin Heart for us. So we will get some music tonight, folks. Assuming he doesn't reset out as soon as he sees the .done.
And Zilch's Porum hanging in there. As soon as we see an unnerved Big Bang, which I believe this one is, that should spell the end for the tiniest white mage. And then it's going to just basically be heal potions, or excuse me, cure 3 potions from here on out to keep his berserkers alive. Actually, it was surprisingly close there on that Big Bang. Only about 25 to 30 HP separated Porum between life and death.
Yeah, that was actually kind of surprising to me, but now is when the Z fight gets really tricky because the black holes are coming out. You're going to have to get your Bacchus back up, and for a little bit of time there, it's really bad to be on battle speed 1 because you don't have Zerkers saving you, but Meteos is out, rocks are falling. It looks like this is in the bag for Zilch.
Yeah, and just a testament to the amount of damage he was able to put out there in such a short amount of time with those 3 berserkers. Just getting to that Meteo phase after only seeing 1 Big Bang hit, and now it is just a matter of time before we see a finish from Zilch, and we should see Peasants right on his heels here.
But we do have to note that we are about to get music from Khobahi, so going to take a little minute here for the music, and let's name that tune, guys. Looks like we've got some lovely Chrono Trigger music. Unfortunately, it's not going to save Khobahi tonight, but that's the way the rando goes sometimes.
Yeah, some a wonderful display of 1000 AD right here. Unfortunately, Khobahi probably realizing that he's about 1,000 years behind everyone else at this point as these dot tons come through. That being said, I believe we are joined with our first place finisher here. It is Zilch. Zilch, GG, and congratulations on your finish.
Thank you. It's one of those where bad idea ends up paying off.
Well, you were the only one to take that you call it a bad idea for you. You were the only one that went to the moon while everybody else was diving underground. What kind of convinced you to make that play?
I really shouldn't have made that play. I had no coffins. I was relying on assassin daggers to kill things on the moon, and if there were no free fights there, I think I was. But I don't know. I just felt like, yeah, I should gamble, even though I really shouldn't gamble when it's the top 3 go on. Yeah, I don't really have a good reason. I just kind of felt like, hey, let's go to the moon. That sounds fun.
Hey, sometimes you got to go with your gut.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say it's definitely interesting to watch because I kept on mentioning the Warlock grind, and it's like, oh, it would be nice, but we have no way to kill them. We have no way to kill anything on the moon. And then we saw you trying to get the Assassin Dagger procs, and it's like, well, you're going to lose a lot of time here, but honestly, it took everyone else so long to get through the hook route. There was that Antlion that just kept murdering everyone, so you didn't lose as much time as you thought trying to get that extra EXP.
The other... What was I going to say? Not what it was. I'll remember in a minute.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask, because it was the burning question on everyone in chat's mind was, did Zilch forget about D-Mist? Because everyone else went and checked that, got the Legend Sword. You went to the moon and found the Adamant there, and then everyone was wondering, does he still know to go to D-Mist? What was the reason? Did you actually forget, or was there a specific reason you decided to go to the moon before making the D-Mist check?
I remembered right after I got to the moon and was ready, like, I think it was when I was in the gauntlet fight. And I debated going back, like doing a save state and then not making a save and checking it and then coming back. I was like, no, the chances of it being the Legend Sword are so low that I may as well just full clear the moon and then do it after. And then I saw the Legend there. I mean, I didn't really care at that point because I figured the gauntlet holding the Adamant, no one's going to do that early. Except for me, for some reason, even though I normally reset out of Gauntlet.
Yeah, actually, it's been very interesting because after we saw the Adamant there, we thought that Gauntlet there might scare away some of the other runners, but the other runners that have gone there have dove right in and shown no fear. No one has backed out of that Gauntlet fight just yet.
I actually would normally back out of that 99% of the time. The only reason I didn't was because I made the stupid choice to go to the moon without any way to kill anything or get experience, and that happened to be the best way. I was like, oh, I can Assassin Dagger with everything here.
Yeah, good use. You saw you using putting the Assassin Dagger and the Crusader. So very, very resourceful there.
At least they finally started procking on the bosses. Warlocks, I don't know.
Some resistant Warlocks there. They didn't quite want to get stoned.
Yeah, I do know that it's somewhat tied to the agility in the spot, and I also know that if you cast an Hourglass, for some reason it likes to stop advancing the RNG for the enemy, so it's hard to get a proc later after you use an Hourglass, so it's definitely a very weird scenario there. One question I had, though, is how much of a relief was it finding that X-Cal at the Pinktail?
I mean, I was going to go with a Poison Axe if I didn't have that, and that would have been a much more scary Z fight. So it's a pretty big relief there. Searching for way too many key items for that. I mean, I could have just gone right when I got the Bacchus Wines, but I don't know. I figured I hadn't seen a Cecil weapon anywhere, there was a good chance I'd at least get a defense sword if I kept checking the free items while I was checking the shops anyway, because I still wanted the silk webs and Bacchus. Tail and Pinktail were 2 quick checks.
Definitely. Well, this is the first of the elimination rounds here. Was a very strong showing here, taking first place. We've got the next one coming up, which is going to be a 3-person race. How are you feeling going into the second round of competition here in the Mist Dragon division?
Feel pretty good. I mean, if a gamble like that pays off, you know, that's a good confidence booster. Things that shouldn't work out. Great. It wasn't a 17 out of or 28 out of 28 seed, which is odd. Yeah, if I had checked the Mist Dragon first, I don't even know what time I would have posted, but probably would have been sub-hour.
It would have definitely been a fast one.
Sub-hour, but...
So did you have any final thoughts on your seed or the performance here tonight?
No, that's it. Thanks for commentary, restreaming, tracking, all that good stuff.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming in for an interview. GG on your... Good luck in round 2.
Thank you.
So it looks like
Peasants here?
Yeah, Peasants has joined us, but we also have Dobby starting the Z fight. Unfortunately, I think it's too little too late for Khobahi, but GG's Peasants, how are you feeling after that seed?
Yeah, pretty good, thanks.
So yeah, a very two incredibly different paths to Zeromus here tonight between first and second place. You were right on Zilch's tail despite going underground first, while Zilch actually went to the moon and picked up the adamant there first. What sort of compelled you to chase the hook route rather than going to the moon with Darkness Crystal?
It was mostly basically all I had was an elven bow to do like mages up there and literally nothing else. I had sirens obviously, but it was I think dragons would have taken too long. And it wasn't too difficult of a hook route. It was a lot of we had no illusions. It was lots of physical, but I mean with cover it wasn't too bad I think. And Sylph.
Yeah, Sylph definitely putting in a lot of work this seed.
Oh yeah, God bless Rydia. Was glad to get rid of her, but I mean, still, good job.
Hey, she served her purpose for as long as she needed to.
She did what she needed to do.
So one thing that I'm curious about, how did you feel about that Antlion?
I went into it with, I didn't heal beforehand, and I was like, oh, I hate Antlion here, but I knew if I had basically the spam Sylph had Cecil cover, and maybe use an illusion on him if need be, like I'll just see how much damage he was taking. It would have, I think I was going to get through it, and I did. I think it was a little bit slower than what I would have liked to have it been, but I mean, I think that was the right way to go about it, I think. No extra grinding needed. I didn't have Blink on Porum. That was my thing that I was pretty peeved about during that fight.
Yeah, she takes a surprising amount of EXP to get Blink, even though she learns Berserk so early, but...
Oh, Berserk was fantastic for the fight afterwards, but I mean, no Blink was still pretty frustrating.
Yeah, I know that for the most part, you were leading the pack this seed up until the hook dive started. You skipped a few extra checks. I don't think I saw you full loot miss early, which gave you a little bit of a time advantage, and then I think Khobahi just slightly passed you, defeating the Octomom just because of a slightly better setup, I think.
Yeah.
But overall, you decided to make the moon play when it counted, and it paid off.
I mean, I got a food and a pan, and then the pan just gave me an Excalibur, so I was like, okay, I'm leaving. All I had left was a Sure Spot and Keel's Tower, right? It was not much.
Yeah, it wasn't a whole lot left for you to check. An interesting thing about that Excalibur is just sort of showing how both of these two routes kind of came together. Zilch also had an Excalibur on his Cecil because he found the pink tail on the moon, which gave him an Excalibur. So You had very similar setups going into there, despite how completely differently you approached the suit.
So did you say that Zilch did Moon first?
He did. He went to the moon and didn't go underground until after he had full cleared the moon.
Oh, so he wouldn't have had the food then.
Correct. Yeah, he went in without the food. He was relying on Porum, which she didn't last a
When he finished, I was and I was just about to finish. I was like, all I could think of is that he probably just didn't do Bahamut in Feymarch. He just skipped the Feymarch bosses. That's in my head. I was like, that's probably what he did, because I don't think I got anything good from it. Crystal ring, maybe. I got something mediocre, but and I was like, that took about 2 minutes, so I assumed that was what would happen. But apparently, he just did everything different.
Yeah, definitely a VOD I'd recommend watching. Just to see how divergent things.
I'm definitely excited to watch it.
So you got the first round past you. You got second place here. You're moving on to the next one. How do you feel about round 2 of the Mist Dragon division here?
Okay, I think I versed Dobby a lot in Discord races, and we're pretty even actually. So I like every second seed I win, every first seed he wins. So I mean, it's pretty up in the air. I think Zilch definitely has a bit on me though. He beats me more often than I beat him, but I mean, we'll see.
Well, it was definitely a very interesting race, and you played it pretty well. You got the luck you needed, and I think if you go and watch back, I'm not sure exactly where Khobahi went, but he found the Tower Key, the Luca Key, the Baron Key, and the Twin Harp. He gave us music, but...
Oh god. Poor Khobahi, oh my gosh.
Yeah, if there was a rabbit hole, Khobahi...
Yeah, so... Unfortunately, that's how his seed went, so...
That's how I've been playing all of my my practice races up until this point, so I decided to stop getting rabbit holed just for this one important race, and then I'll go back to being rabbit holed after this.
Meanwhile, we just saw our the finish by Dobby, so GG's to Dobby, well raced, and unfortunately Khobahi is taking the elimination tonight. Rando's gonna rando, and maybe someone should trust me about Moon having value 75% of the time.
It's like 100% of the time at this point.
I still claim it's haunted.
Well, GG's to Dobby.
GG's to you as well, Peasants. Thanks so much for the interview here, and good luck in round 2. It'll be a pleasure to watch your race.
Excellent, thank you. Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Bye.
I believe we are joined here by our third place finisher, Dobbytwostep. Dobbytwostep, GG, and congratulations on your...
Thank you.
So, you want to take any guesses about how you beat Khobahi tonight?
I have no idea.
You didn't do Tower.
Oh, I didn't do Tower.
Tower was Tower Key, which was, I believe, Luca Key. He also got a Baron Key and a Twin Harp, so he gave us music tonight, which was very admirable, but unfortunately Rando did Rando, and he even went to the moon and put off the gauntlet for a little while because he had seen the dot duns, and it was just too little too late, unfortunately.
Yeah, nobody wants to do the gauntlet, but it's hard to pass up when you got the percentage play up there.
Yeah, that was one of our big questions throughout the run was, Zilch actually went moon early. The other 3 runners went underground, and when we saw him get the adamant up there, and he forgot to check Zemus, so he didn't have the legend sword, which kind of put the dot done even further off, but it was like, that's the gauntlet. Who is actually going to go up here and skip out on the gauntlet and not get their go mode?
Yeah, it's gauntlet's questionable every time you find it, but sometimes you just gotta gamble and do it.
So, what? Because you were sort of partway through finishing everything up in the underground before you decided to making checks on the moon. What sort of was the determining factor to sort of cut yourself off and head up to the moon and start checking there instead?
I'd basically exhausted everything on the Earth except for a few things, and as with the flag set, it favors going to the moon, planning half and half. So sadly, going top bottom was a bad call. And there was no value in that Cave Bahamut except for a free fight.
Yeah, there were a lot of free fights on the moon here, which really kind of favored decision to go early. What was your kind of overall feel about sort of the routing that you took? Were there anything that you maybe in hindsight might have changed and done differently?
Not really. I'm glad I skipped Val and Baron N. I fought her too many times in practice there. She's a pain in the butt, so.
Oh, goodness gracious, yeah. Definitely one of the trollier bosses that is in the pool here.
A couple people managed to take Val out pretty early. They used a Earth Hammer and a Strength Ring on their Lunar Sid, and was able to do about 100 damage a hit. So they were rewarded with a free fight of Water Hag right afterwards. So it wasn't as bad as it could have been, but it was definitely something.
Yeah, from experience, that spot is just annoying with her, and I figured, well, if it's a magma key, I don't care. I'm going underground.
So this was, of course, the first round here. So you'll be moving on to the second round of the elimination here. Do you, it's going to be going up against Peasants and Zilch here in round 2. Do you think you'll make any sort of adjustments on how you approach it based on the results here? Or what are kind of your thoughts moving into the next round?
I don't think you can change your game up just because of one race. I think you just generally stick to your game plan, have fun with the game, and do your routing like you want to do it.
Gotcha. Well, did you have any final thoughts on this seed or performance overall?
Just thank you to the restreamer and the tracker and our commentary team. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thanks for joining us. Congratulations on your finish, and we'll see you in round 2. So that was Dobbytwostep here taking 3rd place and moving on in the highway to the Zemus zone. Unfortunately, that means we are going to have to say goodbye to Khobahi. Khobahi, though, putting on a good show here and finishing this one off. And going into the Zeromus fight right now. Shouldn't have too much trouble here whatsoever with those HP totals we're seeing on the characters. We're going to be in a very strong position here.
Yeah, the only person who is not making it through this fight is the Porom, and unfortunately that's kind of Porom's thing. I'm sorry, Natara and Dimmerine and all the people who love Porom, but Porom needs her nap time.
Yeah, this is a particularly late race. It's almost 1 p.m. Toast. Far too late for a toddler to be staying up, regardless of how powerful a white mage she might be. Not strictly necessary, though, with the amount of damage being put out here by the Berserker team. We don't need to rely on her so much. Would surprise me if we saw more than one additional Big Bang here going into the end of the fight.
Yeah, I noticed one kind of oddity in this fight. Khobahi is anchoring with Fu. With 3 Zerkers, that's not really a problem. It's not usually a common strategy, but I'm pretty sure he's mentioned doing this quite a bit, and it's a strategy that he enjoys quite a bit, so it seems to be doing just fine for him, and at these levels and HP totals, I imagine this is going to be a fairly trivial fight.
So while we're Khobahi's finishing up here, getting the Big Bang, I think that's going to spell the end for Fu, but the Berserkers should still be on their feet. What exactly is the advantage to berserking your fighters here in this final fight specifically?
There's quite a few advantages to berserking, but besides getting the 50% boost to your attack power, it allows your characters to process through the ATB queue a lot faster than normal. Instead of actually having to spend a couple ATB ticks trying to issue an action to them, they will automatically queue themselves up for an attack. And when you have this many Zerkers, you can actually fill the queue with so many actions that Zeromus has to wait extra time between every action, waiting for all of your characters to take their turn before he can actually take a turn. And with that, Khobahi has finished the race, taking down that Zeromus. I don't know, have we gotten an official SRL time yet?
Looks like it is a 1:43.13 for Khobahi here this evening, which is still an amazing time considering all of the checks that he ended up making. That is a really, really quick way through here.
Yeah, so unfortunately was not the winner of this race, but it's going to be the first in our hearts for doing that twin harp. It seems like we're joined by Khobahi. GG's Khobahi.
Thank you.
Josh, so you really got rabbit hole hard. Just a really unfortunate rando gonna rando there. How do you kind of feel about all those checks that you ended up making there?
I mean, obviously I made the decision to stay Oath side, so I was gonna make all the checks until I saw the ... and skip forward. Basically figuring at that point it's on the moon, so I was basically hoping at that point if the other racers had stayed on the Oath, if I would go straight to the moon, I might be able to catch someone, but seemed not to be the...
Yeah, a lot of it was you and Dobby actually, when the first done came through, were the two that hadn't made the plays to the moon, and it was just sort of kind of the order that bosses went in, because you saw that Fabul Gauntlet fight, and of course nobody wants to go through that and noped out of it, but unfortunately that ended up being the play. I did see that you eventually went back to that. Was that just sort of some metagaming from seeing the other dums coming through?
Yeah, like I knew I only needed one item, so I figured I would save the Fabul Gauntlet, which was going to be annoying for a secondary check. Basically going to see if there was a lot of free bosses left on the tracker too, so...
Yeah, and I believe every fight on the moon, with I believe like one exception, I believe Baigen was at the Pale Dim spot, ended up being like a free fight or no boss bit or anything like that. Zilch actually went to the moon first, interestingly enough, and got to take the benefit from that. What sort of made you have the decision to stay on the Earth and go chase the hook route rather than try for a moon play when you found that darkness crystal?
At the time, I just didn't really feel I had the items to deal with the moon properly. Like, my weapon situation was pretty slim. And I knew that the Octomom in that hook spot was going to be pretty easy, like, once I just hit it a bunch of times.
Yeah, I think you were the first one underground, and it was a struggle for Zilch up on the moon. It took him almost as long to get through, I think, 2, maybe 3 Warlock encounters as it took everyone to get through the entire underground. And then he started the gauntlet fight right as you guys got underground. Unfortunately, he forgot to check Zemus, which is why his done took so long. I mean, overall, you did a really good job in the tournament. You had some really good races. I believe it was you who said that you wanted to play some more WoW, so World of Warcraft. So unfortunately, it means 2 years in a row getting eliminated right at this round of 16. But rando's gonna rando, and now you get to play other games.
Yep, my new coast is just being a team captain. I just need to come in the middle now. Next year. That's the plan.
It's been a deadly tournament for team captains so far.
Yeah, we tossed out Woobear just a little while ago, so you should have lost your last match, and then you could have joined me and Invin in the Mathematically Simbu Club.
Apparently.
Well, Khobahi, you raced fantastically. You're one of the absolute best free enterprise players by virtue of getting this far in this tournament. So definitely thanks for putting on a fantastic show here this evening. And just, thank you so much for being just an incredible player. And I have to say goodbye, but still, you should be absolutely proud of what you've done here. So give it up for Khobahi and chat, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, and good luck to all the runners on the next rounds.
Take care. And with that, I believe we are finished for this evening. That was quite the race, wasn't it, Simbu?
Yeah, I mean, it's always interesting to see how these races play out when people don't have the typical incentive for first place or bust, but unfortunately, it's also one of those cases where you need to not be the one who does stuff that no one else does, and we saw that almost bite Zilch, but he lucked into the right spot and come back to bite someone else who decided to stay on the moon. I mean, stay on the Earth instead of make the commitment to the moon when everyone else did. It's just, you gotta stick to your gut and hope it guides you the right way.
Yeah, it's just one of the exciting things about free enterprise and how, every time you play it, it's going to be different. I mean, that's the nature of the randomizer, but just the way this particular one makes you think about your decisions, your routing, and just rewards overall game knowledge, gutsy plays, and sticking to what you think is going to work for you. And if you're interested in seeing some more free enterprise, definitely check out the Discord here. We'll have links and schedules available to all the rest of the Highway to the Zemus Zone matches as they happen for the rest of going into the fall here. And you can also run into a bunch of other players who are always down for pickup racing. So definitely check us out. It's a wonderful community. We love having new people and teaching the game. So definitely check us out, and we'd love to have you. Anything else you wanted to add, Simbu?
Not very much. You covered mostly everything. I think we have three more matches before we get to the round of 8. I know that I have a race this Friday at some time. I think it might be 9 or 9:30 Eastern, but definitely a lot more good races to come. And then once we finish eliminating people, we're going to combine the teams up and start cutting everyone down 2 at a time. And then one final grand race, I think September 21st or so, for the wonderful Scala Kitty to make a Z sprite of our choosing. So the stakes are high. Gotta cut everyone down. Gotta be number 1.
Definitely the greatest reward anyone could ask for. So that's going to do it for us. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. For our restreamer Tirasu, our tracker tonight, Algebrop, and my partner here, Simbu, I am Smaepdii, and thanks so much for watching.